Part 9. Breaking the Line, the Nelson Touch. In 1797 the Spanish fleet was covering a convoy carrying a valuable cargo of quicksilver. Nelson, recently appointed a commodore, sighted them and reported to Admiral Sir John Jervis, who was in command of the British Mediterranean fleet of 15 sail of the line. They found the Spanish fleet and its convoy off Cape St Vincent on the 14th of February 1797. The Spanish were in two groups, 18 ships of the line and 5 transports to windward, and 5 ships of the line and 4 transports to leeward. St Vincent formed line and headed for the gap between the two Spanish groups. This was a British tactic which had worked against a badly formed enemy several times before, but Jervis's order to attack in succession made it look as though the Spanish were going to get away. In fact, the Spanish Admiral de Cordova had ordered his van to turn and attack the British rear, and his leeward group to attack the British line near the point where it was tacking, led round by Captain Trowbridge in the Culloden. Contrary to Nelson's own account, St Vincent himself signalled the British rear under Vice Admiral Sir Charles Thompson to block the move by the Spanish van. Thompson didn't see the signal, but Nelson did. He wore out of the British line in his flagship Captain, followed by Captain Collingwood in the Excellent. Due to the teamwork of the British, they took 4 Spanish ships, including 2 which had collided and been battered by 4 British ships. The San Nicola collided with the San Josef, trying to avoid Excellent's fire. San Nicola and San Josef struck their colours after Nelson had personally led the boarding party which took them. Early in the French Revolutionary War, the French Republic had conquered the Low Countries and forced the Dutch to become the Batavian Republic. This gave the French control of the Dutch fleet. Off the Dutch coast in October 1797, Admiral Duncan's fleet of 16 line of battleships sighted the Dutch fleet of Vice Admiral Jan de Winter. He had formed his 15 ships into line. They were mostly 64s and 50s, which were of shallower draught, suitable for Dutch waters. Duncan ordered general chase. Then he saw the Dutch edging towards the shoals. Rather than form his own line, he ordered his ships in their cruising formations to attack the Dutch centre and rear in Lord Howe's manoeuvre. Whether or not they understood what he meant, his captains followed him into close action. After very heavy fighting, the British took 9 Dutch ships, of which 3 later sank or were wrecked. The Dutch Admiral de Winter later told Duncan, "Your not waiting to form line ruined me. If I had got nearer the shore and you had attacked, I should probably have drawn both fleets onto it, and it would have been a victory for me, being on my own coast." The Battle of the Nile was a line battle due to the fact that the French were anchored in a defensive line. The French fleet of 13 line of battleships thought that they were too close to the shore for any attacker to get between them and the shallows. On the 1st of August 1798, Nelson found the French fleet anchored in Aboukir Bay at the mouth of the Nile. Nelson, with a squadron of 14 ships of the line, had been looking for them for 2 months. Nelson gave the order to attack immediately, even though it was already dusk. His plan was to enter the bay in line abreast, but to round a shoal his leading ships were in line. They noticed a French ship swinging at her anchor and realized that they could sail down the landward side of the French line. Not only were the French unprepared on that side, but it would allow the British to double on the French. The 5 leading British ships all went down the French line on the landward side, while the rest of Nelson's squadron closed with them from seaward. It was a crushing victory which climaxed when the 120-gun French flagship L'Orient blew up around 10 p.m. By morning, all but 2 of the French line of battleships were captured or destroyed. Napoleon's last scheme to invade Great Britain ended on the 16th of August 1805, when his Grande Armée marched east from Boulogne. Napoleon ordered the French and Spanish combined fleet to sail towards Naples to support operations against Austria. At 6 a.m. on the 21st of October 1805, the 2 fleets sighted each other southeast of Cape Trafalgar. Nelson's plan was to form his fleet into 2 columns or lines, led by their flagships Victory, 100, and Royal Sovereign, 100, as their strongest ships. The first line would separate the enemy fleet's centre from its rear. The second line to leeward, led by Collingwood in Royal Sovereign, reached the combined fleet's disorderly line first. She broke through astern of the Spanish Santa Ana, a 112-gun three-decker. By the time the weather or windward British line, led by Nelson, reached the enemy line, Victory's mizzen topmast and her wheel had been shot away. Even ships such as Belle-Isle, immediately behind Royal Sovereign, lost as many as 50 men, even though they were lying flat at their guns, which could not yet return fire. Victory forced her way through astern of the French flagship Bucentaure 80, raking her, but collided with Redoutable 74. As the British ships joined in, the battle turned into exactly the melee Nelson wanted, in which the British superiority in gunnery proved decisive. Of the 33 ships of the Franco-Spanish fleet, 17 were captured and 1 blew up. Nelson himself was wounded and died. He was buried in St Paul's Cathedral, but British naval dominance would last for the next 100 years.